God bless America. Hello, everybody. I am the Talk Radio Protege. This is the Protege program. Thank you for joining me. I hope that you're all doing well. We're almost to Friday. Hang in there. I hope that you will enjoy this video, and I hope it will be a welcome distraction from the strains of the week, however they may be. We've got a Trump's America update for you today. There are a few things in the news that I would like to say a few things about, and as is my current style, rather than make 3 different videos, I'm going to do one video where I jam them all together. And we're going to begin with the Jobless claims report, this from Bloomberg Markets. Apparently, the U.S. jobless claims plunged to the lowest that they've ever been. 1973, I believe, is the first year that we began tracking jobless claims, and they're at the lowest point they've been since that time. Now, when we talk about jobless claims, we're talking about the unemployment number. And we have to think about this in the same way that we thought about it when Obama was president, and it was still, low for the shape that the economy was said to be in. For the jobless claims to be at the lowest point that they've ever been has to mean one of two things. Either the economy is going so great that people are going straight from out of work, not looking for work, into a new job, or people are, the economy's not that great, and people continue to drop off the jobless claims. They continue to go into the out-of-work portion of the population. Now, with the trends that the economy is currently under, with employers giving raises and bonuses to their employees, citing the tax law changes that are rolling out this year, I highly doubt that that's the case. And even setting aside, an honest interpretation of what these numbers should mean, if this were a Democrat president, if this were Obama and U.S. jobless claims were at an all-time low, do you think that anybody would be asking the question, well, how did this number actually get to this point? I highly doubt that. I think that people would be saying, look, the president made the jobless claims go to the lowest that they've ever been, regardless of whether people were actually going back to work or if they were simply giving up looking for work. I think that the policy, that's one thing that is going to come up a lot in analysis of the economy when it comes to President Trump versus President Obama. You're going to hear this a lot in the mainstream media, that it was, I remember seeing in The Atlantic, I went and looked it up. You can find this on the Bureau of Labor Statistics. Black unemployment specifically is also at the lowest that it's ever been since we began tracking the number. The Atlantic wrote a column, and I didn't copy it because I didn't want to spend a bunch of time talking about it, but The Atlantic says that it's not Trump's doing that has caused jobless claims to go to the lowest they've ever been. They said it's been the past decade. Okay, if they're saying it was the past decade that resulted in the current economy, then they have to explain how the economic policies of the past decade created the economic crash that happened in 2008 and 2009, the anemic recovery that existed in 2009, 2010, and 2011, and why there were no changes until a certain political party got a hold of the House and the Senate from 2010, 13, 14, and 15. If it was Obama's economic policy that of the past 10 years, when we say the past decade, we're now talking about the last year of Bush, which was basically a year of Democrat control over policy, 8 years of Obama, 2 of which were totally unopposed years of Democrat control, arguably 4 of which were totally unopposed Democrat control of the government, and the last year of Trump, which has been pretty rocky. It's been total Republican control of the House and Senate and the presidency, but arguably not full Republican control over policy. We've had a very hard time implementing Republican policy over the past year, but the president has done a lot in terms of changing the direction of the federal government. Obama's White House, Obama's administration is very, very different from Trump's administration. And the track that the country and the economy was on during the last year of Obama is very different from the track that the government and the economy has been on in the first year of Trump. I think that's what's most important to remember as you're doing these economic analyses, as you're thinking about what the impacts this president is having, what the results that we're seeing mean, and as you're listening to what the mainstream media is putting out there. Now, I don't care about those notifications. The interesting thing I think that comes from this Bloomberg column is this first paragraph. They're predicting that the job market will tighten further in 2018. They're saying that as jobless claims go down, that means the job market is tightening. That means that either people are giving up looking for jobs, which I don't think is the case, or so many people are going back to work that eventually people are going to find a hard time finding jobs. Now, I happen to believe, based on the way that companies are reinvesting in the United States of America, giving their employees bonuses and raises and citing the tax law as the reason for these changes, I think we're actually going to see, if we see a tightening of the job market, it's not going to force people out of work. It's actually going to make people's jobs better. And here's why. When the job market tightens, the demand is not for a job. The demand is for labor. When the job market tightens in the way that it looks like it's going to, the demand is from employers, not employees. The demand is we need people to work, and the supply is people that are looking for work. If our out-of-work numbers stay the same, which are very high, we might see that number go down. But if the demand for jobs is greater than the supply of labor, we're going to see wages increase. We're going to see benefits get better. We're going to see employers work harder to sweeten the pot to get the labor that they're going to be looking for. This is going to be an excellent, excellent thing for the American worker. And the next story that I wanted to look at was the 2017 Imagination Report, What Kids Want to Be When They Grow Up. This is a survey that I guess is conducted every 4 years or so by Fatherly and New York Life. And this survey samples 1,000 children under the age of 12 and reports the results as follows. And they talk about what people want to be what kids want to be when they grow up, what influences kids as they grow, and the most popular careers for kids have changed significantly since the last report. Now, before I show you the graph, think for a moment what your dream job would have been as a kid. I can tell you, as a very young kid, I knew that being a professional athlete was a great thing to be. It was a dream job of mine. Over the years, that dream changed as my beliefs changed and as my understanding of what it would mean to get a job like that. But, under the age of 12, I would say that's safely the most imaginative that kids are when thinking about what they want to be when they grow up. And athlete has always been a popular choice, and I think it's been the number one choice for a long, long time now. But in 2017, the report changed significantly. Athlete, as they say, I hope they say in this column, there was a column about Okay, here it is. 2015 was the last time they did it. In 2015, the number one profession was athlete. And as you can see, that has dropped all the way to number 8. On the left-hand side here, you can see that these are percentages of the respondents. And you can see number 1 is now doctor. And you see police officer there is number 3. I hope that they talk about it in this paragraph. There it is. Police officer moved into the number 3 spot this year after ranking 10 in 2015. This says to me something that's critical. Did they say... did they say here what the most influential thing on these kids is at the moment? I know they do somewhere. Okay, yeah. So apparently YouTube has moved into the number 1 slot of top influences on career choices. So we always knew that media was a big influencer on kids and what they want to do when they grow up. You know, the things that are portrayed as being great and awesome and fun are things that kids aspire to be. Athletes have always been very popular, very great, seen as a very fun occupation, so it's always been popular. But in recent years, especially a couple of years ago, as the BLM movement was really picking up steam, we saw cops, police, and the police get just dumped on, crapped on by everybody in the media, by Black Lives Matter. I don't watch that much TV, but I can imagine it happening a lot all across television programs of all different sorts. I mentioned in a previous video, I love the show Blue Bloods, and I think they do a good job of handling the tension between the police and minority communities very well. They show you both sides of their perspective, but I can imagine that many other television shows don't portray the same thing. So it seems like a total failure to me of the Black Lives Matter movement and messaging that police officer is the 3rd most popular choice by children as a dream job, and athlete has moved from number 1 all the way to number 8. It's obvious to me that the police have become a much more respected occupation over the last couple of years, and athletes have plummeted in the respect that they garner in children's eyes. One thing that is very significant, and I think ought to cause or might draw cheers from the feminist crowd, is look at the most popular jobs listed for girls. Number 1 is doctor. Number 2 is veterinarian. Number 3 is scientist. If that doesn't look obvious to you, then let me know what it looks like the top 3 choices for girls are on this chart. These are all STEM careers. Doctor, veterinarian, scientist. Engineer is even up there in the top 10. You know, it looks like more boys want to be engineers. You know, the thing about engineers, the way that you tell somebody what an engineer is you tell them what engineers get to play with. You know, a mechanical engineer gets to play with things that move. A civil engineer gets to play with buildings and stationary things. A chemical engineer gets to play with chemicals, obviously. That's how you tell people what an engineer is. So when you say an engineer gets to play with things, you know, that obviously getting to play with moving parts is something that, you know, I can see would appeal a lot to boys. But still, doctor, veterinarian, scientist, top 3 jobs that girls under the age of 12 in 2017 aspire to. So it seems odd to me that with YouTube being one of the top influencers of children in 2017, we have the feminist agenda when it comes to girls and their careers being realized. More girls than ever before wanting to go into STEM. But at the same time, another embraced by the left agenda, the Black Lives Matter agenda, seems to be wholesale rejected by the children surveyed in 2017. it's a strange dichotomy to me, is all that I'm trying to say. The last thing that I wanted to talk about is the highly anticipated 2017 Fake News Awards. It was a couple of weeks ago that we saw the tweet from Donald Trump saying that he was going to be publishing the Fake News Awards, and I got very excited. I was very excited to see the president go up against one of these other big awards shows and compete with them. I was ready to see him thrash them in their awards show style displays. Instead, disappointingly, all we got was a blog post from GOP.com. And I can say that I am disappointed. I was hoping to see a video where Donald Trump brings out these little trophies and hands and, says, and the trophy of most fakest news story of 2017 goes to, and delivers it in that way. Instead, we get a list from the GOP and their commercial website. But I just wanted to skim through this a little bit and leave a few comments here and there. So the number one fake news award goes to the New York Times and Paul Krugman. And I have to say that this is hilariously ironic. New York Times, Paul Krugman, on the eve of the election, or on the eve of President Trump, right after he had been elected, said that the market would never recover. And there was, go back and look at some of those market trackers. There's a very strange thing that happens. Some people have tweeted about it in the past. Uncertainty is not good for markets. So elections are naturally rough on the market. And across the election day, the market was plummeting and plummeting and plummeting. And then when the election result was finalized, the market sprung up 1,000 points, something ludicrous. Like, it dropped all day, and then we knew who had won. There was certainty in the world again, and the stock market sprung back into place. It's interesting to speculate. Some people say the market breathed a sigh of relief when it realized that Hillary Clinton wasn't going to be president. I happen to think that the market would have rebounded somewhat after the election was finalized, no matter what. But I think it's safe to say that the market has more than recovered from the election of Donald Trump, according to Paul Krugman. Some other things that we can look at, Brian Ross bungling a report on Trump, which caused the stock market to crash, easily 500 points, dropped like a rock. We had CNN botching the release of emails that very clearly stated dates in which the Trump campaign was made aware of WikiLeaks articles, and we could go on down. The Martin Luther King Jr. bust that was reported removed from the Oval Office. A Trump rally that was reported as empty way before it had actually taken place. CNN falsely reporting that Trump had not followed the lead of Shinzo Abe in feeding the koi fish. And, we go on and on and on. And I want to get to these items here. These are assuming that this was written by Trump or people in the Trump satellite that know what Trump thinks about these things. These are Trump's top 10 accomplishments of 2017 so far. The economy has created nearly 2 million jobs and gained over $8 trillion in wealth since the president's inauguration. Here it is again, African Americans. I know this one for sure because I've seen the chart for myself. I'm not sure about Hispanics. I wasn't able to find that chart. Enjoying the lowest unemployment rate in recorded history. These are all items that are not going to be reported in the media ever. The historic tax cuts. We're already seeing positive effects of the tax cuts, and we were even seeing these positive effects before anything took place, before anything was finalized. ISIS in retreat. This is something I did a video a while back that was looked at a New York Times article that was titled, "This is what victory over ISIS looks like." That's the only reporting that's being done about ISIS, about the fact that they're in retreat, they're being routed, they're fleeing from the battlefield in the place of this new, of the army under the leadership of this new administration. recognition of Jerusalem as the capital of Israel, and the appointment of Justice Neil Gorsuch, an invaluable ally in the Supreme Court for the Constitution, not just for Republicans. I would say that 2017 has been a strong enough year for the president and for the Republican Party. It's a little late to talk about how good the president really did in 2017, but I think that it's been good enough. I think that we should see positive results for the Republican Party and for conservatism in the midterm elections. I would hope that the president would work hard to get more Republicans elected, to get more people that are going to further facilitate this agenda in the midterm elections, and that even though it is an election season, that the Congress would still work to further the president's agenda. Everything that they do to carry on this Make America Great Again agenda is going to improve their chances of election and re-election as this election season moves on. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope that you enjoyed. If you did, make sure you leave a like and subscribe and hit the bell for notifications so that you don't miss a single video. Also, make sure you're still subscribed. I've heard that this has been an issue in the past, people's subscriptions being dropped. So make sure you're still subscribed. If you've hit the red button once before, go make sure it hasn't turned red again. That's going to do it for this video. But until next time, have a good evening and God bless.